what is more Korean than kimchi? Probably just Korean people. Or the Korean flag.
Or the country of Korea itself.
You know, that one didn't make it on the list, actually. So, nobody's perfect.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by three Korean-American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
All right, welcome to episode 1 of the Janchi Show. I'm Patrick.
I'm KJ.
I'm Nathan.
Patrick, why don't you go ahead and explain to our listeners what Janchi means?
Janchi in Korean means celebration, and that's really what our show is about. It's about celebrating our Korean adoptee identities and the discovery and journey that we are currently on. Today's episode, we're going to be speaking with Nathan. We're going to learn a lot about his family and the journey to find them, growing up in Oklahoma, and dating. It's going to be a really great time. A little bit later on, we're going to be trying some kimchi. Somebody's trying it for the first time. I wonder who that's going to be.
It's Patrick.
So stick around. It's going to be a really great show.
Nathan, I guess let's start with a little bit of backstory and your journey to America and your history with adoption. So tell me, all of the basic details. How old were you when you were adopted? Where were you adopted from? Maybe what agency, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. I was adopted at 5 months old and lived in Oklahoma. That's where the Dillon agency was. So I was adopted through Dillon International. And I think they were in conjunction with the Korean East Agency or something like that over in Korea. So came over, my parents were at the airport, picked me up, and lived there for 19 years before I went to college.
And what is your adopted family like? Assuming
so my
2 parents, right? Not a single parent. And then siblings, and what was that like?
Yeah, so my dad is German Scottish. My mom is German Czech. And they met back in college up in the Midwest. And my dad was a chemist, and so that's why they were in Oklahoma. He worked for the petroleum company there. They adopted another Korean girl 3 years before me. She's just 3.5 years older than me, and also from the same agency, and not blood related to me, but from South Korea as well. We were both adopted essentially out of Seoul.
Same.
Right. Okay. So when would you say you were first really aware of your identity as a Korean?
Well, being that my mom is blonde, I would have to say fairly early on. At some point, I'm like, I don't look like my parents. But honestly, at some point, whenever you realize that, I know my parents were very open about it, and they were never like hiding it or anything, but there was always probably that thing is like, where did I come from kind of element that they would, talk to me about. So I was informed from an early age about what adoption even meant, and how the whole your parents are the people who raise you, not necessarily the ones who are blood related to you.
Yeah. So like for me, I remember being really aware of my being Korean, not just like adopted and being different from my family, but being Korean when I was like 10, I think is when it really like, those are some of my early memories, and maybe even a little bit younger. So I didn't know, was that true for you as well? Like that you thought about, like you knew that you were different, but then you didn't realize that different and Korean were slightly unique definitions of your identity? Or were you just like, yeah, I'm different and that's what it is, and then you just kind of went on from there?
Yeah, I think I knew I was different because I was pretty much the only Asian in my elementary school. I think there might have been one other somewhere in the school. I don't remember who they were. But it's a small town. My town itself, I think, had a 3% Asian population. And the city itself was 33,000 people. So it was pretty small, and most of them were, there for the company. So their kids had to have been there somewhere, but I honestly don't remember having any other Asian friends, or, it was always just me in kindergarten or me in first grade. It just didn't really click that I was the only Asian kid in this classroom.
Never set up any play dates with the other 3% of the Asian kids.
Exactly. I know. I think I might have known one. I recall, but it's been so long ago. Yeah.
Now, Patrick, you take offense to small being 30,000, right?
Well, I come from a town of 5,000, so I don't know if I take offense to it. I think it's more that I can't really wrap my mind around it. When people recognize that as small, and then my fiance is from a town of 500, so that's like not even on the scale of registry for people that are 30,000 town full.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, that was my graduating class, I think, was 500. So, yeah.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, it's I say small town because, we knew each other. We only had one high school. So
So it felt like a small town, even though the population was fairly large.
It felt like a small town compared to what I've been used to since now that I've moved on in life. Every city that I've lived in since then has just gotten bigger. And now it's like, LA metropolis here. So.
Gotcha. I just had an image of you doing like the tractor race from Footloose, and I was like, I know that it's probably not that small, but I was like, I bet that's what it was like growing up. It's just him and a bunch of white cowboys doing tractor races out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, and then at the end, I do a flip off of the bar, the high bar.
Yeah, I just want to dance, Mom.
I did that.
Hey, I literally did do tractor pulls in my small hometown. So
I did jump from hay bale to hay bale, actually. I do admit that. My friends lived near a farm, and we would go in the field. I don't think we were supposed to, but we went in the field, and there was hay bales out there, and we would jump from one to another just for fun. So
that is incredible. Yeah. So, okay, so you said that
there's definitely some elements of that.
Yeah, so you said that there weren't a whole lot of other Asians around you. So when you're that young, you probably didn't think about it that way when you were that young. But now looking back, who were some of the people that you looked to as role models? Or when was the first time that you, do you remember, I guess, the first time that you saw another Asian American or just Asian and you're like, oh, I identify with this person. Like that person is like me. And did that conjure up a sense of belonging, or was that, I don't know, what was that like?
I wouldn't say I had any I guess Asian role models growing up. I would say I was a standard typical kid where I did things like play video games and sports. So, I do recall watching a lot of sports on TV. So I liked baseball. I didn't watch a lot of basketball, but we didn't have, the thunder like Oklahoma has now, but there was mostly football, tennis. I played tennis as a kid. I played pretty much any sport that my dad would teach me. A lot of what I learned, I do hold as my dad as the kind of the role model for everything and the things that he did. He started windsurfing, and so I wanted to windsurf. He played table tennis, so I wanted to play table tennis. He could play piano with, he never really took lessons, and so I would try to learn the piano without really wanting to take lessons from an actual teacher.
Yeah.
And it was always something that I was doing just based on whatever my dad was doing. And, I think that maybe that's just typical standard boy dad relationship, but a lot of what I do today is based on the things that he's done, even from random things like memorizing pi to 50 places. So
can you still do it?
I can do pretty far. I don't know if I can get to 50.
Okay,
anymore,
go.
But,
I want to see how far you can go.
Oh, geez. 3.1415926535. See, that's on the spot.
That's already 100 numbers farther than I would ever get.
That's as far as I get.
Okay.
You didn't want to do chemistry, though? You didn't take up chemistry, though, after him?
I didn't. But all of my science fair projects were definitely chemistry related, which was pretty funny. And I talked to my dad about it now. I was like, do you remember doing this project? And he goes, no. I was like, I mean, you pretty much did it for me. But, my science fair projects were all like acids and bases, electroplating. I think one year we did the electroplating one was actually really cool. We copper coated a quarter. But just little nerdy chemistry things. And, those are the things that I did. I never wanted to be a chemist, but that was the age of where computers were coming out. So I followed the computer path.
Nice. Just rode that wave. That's cool.
Rode the wave at the beginning.
So you said that you were adopted at 5 months and you're in like your early 40s now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you've been on the the journey of exploring your Korean American adoptee identity that whole time? Would you say it's been start and stop, or would you say like you really dropped it and then kind of came back to that later in life?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know a lot of people always ask me when I was young, hey, you want to search for your parents? You want to find your parents and more heritage? And I didn't at the time. The most I wanted to learn was things like what the Korean War was, cities in Korea. I never really even had definitely no ability to have any Korean food. And so I never had anything until, I moved out to California. I might have had a little bit in Colorado in college, but yeah, I was always looking for, just something to learn, but there wasn't much. There wasn't internet. There wasn't a whole lot of resources. Yeah, I learned it from an Encyclopedia Britannica. So,
oh, I love those.
Yeah, we had the whole set. So, but yeah,
I just remember seeing those on my parents' wall and being like, "Why? Why are they here? I don't understand."
They had the words and the pictures though, which was the best part of the Encyclopedia.
They had
Britannica.
Pictures.
Yeah, they had pictures and stuff. Lots of
Whoever
animals,
told my parents those Britannicas, they did not get
you
the
got
right
the
copy.
picture list
Yeah.
edition. The pictures were more. You should have gone for the better option.
I wasn't around. I didn't have any say.
Yeah, I know. But I would say that I at one point in college is really where I started connecting more with anything Asian American. I knew there was an Asian Pacific Islander club. They tried to recruit me, and I was like, maybe, but I wasn't really interested. So I kind of just did my own research from then on. Whenever I needed to learn something more, I even did a study. Somebody was doing a master's paper in college about Korean adoptees, and so I volunteered. I was like, sure, I'll do it, and answered a bunch of questions. Listened to some information and facts that they told me. Like, one of the questions I always thought was really amusing that when they asked me, I was like, "Oh, how do you feel about the word banana or Twinkie?" And I was like, "Hungry." But I didn't know. I'd never heard of any term or even a derogatory term like that, where I was, supposed to feel something about being, white on the inside and yellow on the outside. So a lot of I think maybe it was just, I didn't know what kind of things were out there until college and then of course, California.
Do you know what the name of that study was?
I don't, but they did give me a copy of it. And I know I have it somewhere in my files somewhere. It was a pretty big study, but have you guys done any of those things? Have you never done any other Asian studies, interviews, or
no?
Found something at college? What about your Asian, Asian Pacific Islander clubs? Did you have those too?
I thought that was really funny that you said that, because a lot of the things that I've heard is that some of these clubs in college, unless you were really, really leaning into your Asianness or whatever the thing was, they were very exclusionary to adoptees, because it was like, you're a little too different and not fluent enough in the language or not close enough to the culture. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You said they tried to recruit you. I'm like, they didn't try to recruit me. Come on.
Maybe they didn't know I was adopted. Ooh. That's why. And then when they found out, they would have retracted that.
Ooh.
Interesting.
If your parents aren't forcing you into this major, then you really don't belong here.
Yeah, no, I ended up going into a fraternity instead. So that was a lot more fun for me.
Nice. So you said that your journey really began in college, but what was the impetus for that? Like, was there like a specific moment that you remember being like, oh, I really care about this now? Or was it just kind of like you woke up one day?
Yeah. For the Korean adoptee portion of it, and actually moving forward with that, I would say about 6 years ago when I saw that documentary, aka Dan, it was Dan Matthews, his story and his journey of looking for his family and finding them, and all of the stuff that they talked about really connected with me. I really related to that, and I think maybe that's what I needed, was something relatable, something more like, oh, this is very similar to me. And so once I saw that documentary and even met Dan at the premiere, I decided that I think it was the following week that I would contact the agency that I was adopted through and start looking. And I went through all the process. It still took me 8 months to complete all the paperwork and discuss everything over. But finally, when I did do everything, it was only 2 months before I actually started hearing some stuff back.
8 months of paperwork must have been terrible.
Yeah, well, I was busy. This was also at a time when I was like, doing other things, and it wasn't, it took me 40 years to get to this point. I want to make sure I read through all the
Took your time with
paperwork
that
and made
fine
sure.
print.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly, just in case. And it wasn't expensive. That's something that I was surprised about. That they were like, no, this isn't going to be a big process. It's more the paperwork cost, and so I just filled out the questionnaire. They want to make sure you're in the right mindset for it, because there's a lot of potential outcomes that could be negative towards myself or toward the family even. So, it was a good questionnaire, I feel. And that's, once I filled it out and paid my dues, I just waited for that phone call. So
Nice. Yeah. And so for those, you talked a lot about your story in other places on the Dear Asian Americans podcast. There was an article that someone picked up, right?
Yeah, on Board Panda and Coriam also.
Yeah, so people can go and they can find that if they want to like really dig into that. But I was curious, so you opened up your case and you found out that your birth family was basically just waiting for you to open that case, right? And just waiting for you to begin that process to hear back, so that you could get reconnected. What was that like? Because I haven't started my own journey. And from the paperwork that I've seen, and my wife asked me if she's like, do you know anything? I'm like, I mean, I saw a paper one time, but I haven't like studied it. I don't have a strong mental image. So like, I know that I have a sibling, or I think I have a sibling. I think that's what it says. But what was it like when you heard back to hear that your birth family was waiting for you? Did you feel excited? Did you feel like super anxious about that? Were you like, oh gosh, I hope that I don't know, what was going through your head?
Yeah, I've definitely felt anxious. I was like, oh man, I should have done this sooner because of that.
Yeah.
That they had been waiting. I mean, I think all of this time I always assumed that I wouldn't find anything, or that I wouldn't, especially after 30, when I did it, it was 37 years. I was like, 37 years, and I'm not going to find anything, or they're not going to be there. There's no way they could find it. They didn't have computers back then anyway that would keep all the records and things like that. But surprisingly, they keep pretty good records, I guess. And all they did have to do was connect the address of where my parents last lived, and one of my family members was there. And so they instantly connected with me because they had been waiting, and they. Even my brother. This is something that I know someday we may talk about too in our show. But he had there was a little bit of a superstition thing. He actually had a dream the night before that somebody was trying to contact him, and he didn't know who.
What?
And so he was like, there's somebody trying to contact me in his dream, and he didn't know who. And so whatever, he woke up, went to work the next day. That day, he got the phone call that somebody had left a message from an agency and was looking for him.
No!
And so he rushed home. I think he left work actually to get home, to get the message and contact the agency as quick as possible.
That is mind-blowing.
And say, yes, we want to connect. And so they had to do their own portion, sign paperwork, do all kinds of things as well before the process actually completed. But once it finally did, then he could write an email, it could get translated, and then he sent 2 photos. And so when I got those photos, I just remember it was just a surreal experience looking at this photo, because that was the first. So first thing is the phone call, which was interesting enough. She asked me if I wanted to sit down, and this lady from the agency was just being careful because she knows. I think in her mind she knew this was a rare thing, and so she goes, "Your parents unfortunately have passed away, but you have siblings. You have 6 siblings, and they've been waiting for you to contact them." And it's just like, I remember thinking, whoa, I have 6 siblings. And so, it was surreal. And so I rushed home, waited for my wife to get home too. And we opened the email that had the letter directly from him with the photos. And I read the email, and it had detailed information. I mean, one of the first 3 things on there was, how my parents passed and what years they passed. My dad passed, I think it was in the late 90s, but my mom passed actually only 2011. So only 3 years prior to me looking for them, she passed away. And so I kind of, I felt bad a little bit about missing it by that time. But seeing the photo and all the details that he put in that email it was mind boggling, because the first picture I saw was a picture of him with my parents my brother and my parents, and then his wife. And I just looked at that photo of him, and I looked more like him than I looked like my parents. And so that really just connected with me. I'm like, wow, I have a brother. I have a brother who looks like me.
Yeah.
And then I have 5 sisters. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Was it nice to have a brother after having grown up with an adopted sister? Were you always like, man, I wish I had a brother as well?
Yeah, I did. And that was something funny that I think not only I had that feeling that I've always wanted a brother, but he had that feeling. And that was something that, is an amazing thing, because he not only, I grew up with 1 sister, he grew up with 5 sisters. And so, he's like, and not only that, they knew that I was around because they knew I was born and then adopted. So he knew that they had given the younger brother, away. And so I think he was like, you guys gave away my brother, to adoption. And so
that is fodder for just being picked on.
Yeah,
right.
No,
man, I'd be terrified of my brother.
They did say that. They said that they picked on him a lot and things like that. And
It'd be
he
nice
was
to
like,
give you away. Like, oh my gosh, no!
I've always waited. Yeah. So it was an interesting experience to hear the stories. I've heard a few, but yeah, I mean, for him again to wait all this time to find me, and then finally connect with me. And I've seen him now in the last 6 years. I've seen him 3 times. And one of those times when I actually went to Korea to visit the whole family, he was there and he toured, gave me a tour of all the areas. We went out to the East Korea area toward the mountains. And I remember we were walking around at the mountaintop. We took this little tour up to Seraksan, and we were walking around this amazing, beautiful view. And he picks up a snowball and he throws it at me. And I'm at this time, I was probably about 39, 40 when we met.
I've waited 50 years to do this.
11 years older than me, so he's 51. And here's the other thing. He has 2 daughters. So again, he's surrounded by women. And so here I am with
testosterone.
My brother. Yeah, and he throws a snowball at me because he's probably never either thrown a snowball, or maybe he's got a lot of, crap about throwing snowballs at his daughters. I don't know, but it was just
Was it a good snowball?
It was a good snowball.
So he's been waiting for a while to build that up and throw it.
Every year I would climb to the top.
About 40 years. Yeah. He's been waiting 40 years to throw a snowball at his brother.
Just going through a cave, and there's just like so many snowballs. These are for you. Get ready.
I led you here for this reason.
Whoa!
Yeah, exactly. He's like, there's the whole reason to go to the top of the mountain is to throw a snowball at me. But it was just funny. He was making up for lost time, I think. Yeah. And there was a lot of that on that trip back to Korea. A lot of things I saw that he wanted to tell me, that he wanted to show me, but yet, we couldn't really because we were limited on our dialogue.
That your story is like such a fairy tale, almost. Like, it's really, really beautiful. And I know that not all adoptees looking for their family's stories go like that. So I think it's really special to hear something that positive and that uplifting. I'm curious. So you mentioned in another podcast that your family brought you to the graveside of your parents, and that they had a space saved for you, because they have like a place for the names to be written, right, for the names of all the family, right? And I was just thinking about,
yeah,
I don't know. So for me, when I was adopted, my parents kept my Korean name as my middle name, and I know my Korean family name. So I don't know. I guess would you put your Nathan Nowack name? Do you have a given Korean name that you're aware of? Would you put like your Korean name on that, or would you put like some combination of the two, or I don't know?
Yeah, it'd be a curious thing. I think when they said, when we talked about it, they said they were going to put my American name. But the funny thing is, the very first time I met any of them, I met my youngest sister first, and then I met the rest of the family. And a lot of the times they did call me by my Korean name.
What is your Korean
name? Sang Gil. So Sang Gil. But yeah, they called me that for the first few interactions, and I remember it was weird because no one's ever called me by that name. I've known that name and I've used it. I even used it as an email in college.
Yes, that's what I do, man.
I mean, it's not a name that I've completely abandoned. I actually like the name. The middle name is actually funny, spelled Kil, so that's why they always pronounce it by like Gil. But I used to, when I didn't really know how to pronounce it, I was like, "Don't mess with me. My middle name's Kill."
Yes. See, that's when I feel like being ignorant of the Korean language really comes in handy. Like my first screen name, so I used Juntae for all the things, but Kang was my original one. So my buddy was like, "Yo, AIM, Kang the Fang," and I was like, "Yeah, don't come after me." Just a little like 12-year-old boy on AOL Instant Messenger, be like, "Sup, fools?" It was amazing.
I never used my name for anything like that. I was always like, nah, I'll just be Patrick, I guess.
What's your name?
My Korean name is Young Jin Kim, but I believe it was a given at either the adoption agency or wherever. I don't know if that is my family name. So,
yeah, well, it's never too late to start using it for something.
That's true.
Or maybe you use it for passwords and you're just not telling us.
That's true. Well, okay, can we edit that out?
Nope. Just go ahead and list it off, though, just so we can have that.
Do you need the spelling?
The spelling, please. Start from the start.
So you've met with your birth family a number of times, and I know that the family is really important to you. You threw a big party for one of your kids' first birthdays that your brother came to. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. So the big Korean birthday is the first birthday, the Dol Janchi. So I felt it was a thing that I should honor and hold for my son. So we did. We had the whole party and did all the things that you would normally do. We even had this doljabi where you put the items on the floor and he crawls to the item and picks one of the items, and that's supposed to foreshadow his career down the road.
Okay, yeah. So just start over for a second, because this is super interesting to me because I don't have kids yet. And I have no idea what a doljanchi is. And when we were talking about naming the show, Jerry was like, "Janchi, that makes sense. It means celebration." And then you came in hot with the doljanchi. I was like, "What is that? I only know bibimbap and dolso bibimbap. So I don't think it's a hot stone birthday party." No. So doljanchi is I love seeing
first celebration. First birthday celebration.
Okay. And so that,
yeah.
So you said you did all the things, heavy air quotes. What is all of the things?
Yeah. So there's different levels. This party is a different level. And I only know this because I photographed them, throughout my career here. I've never been to one as a guest. Yeah.
You've only worked them.
I don't know that many people. I've only worked them, exactly.
Yeah.
But they've been a range from just a simple, house party kind of thing to an elaborate restaurant with full-on decorations, and they do family photo shoot. It's a lot of like gifts and decorations. I mean, it's like the biggest party for the kid at the beginning of their life they will never remember.
Wow.
But it's a thing that I really thought was neat, just mainly because of the one portion of this party called the doljabi, where they have this foreshadowing portion of the kid's career in the future and their life and whatever they want to pursue, and they crawl across a mat to an item, and you as the parent get to pick these items and place them out. So you can put money, you can put a gavel, for something judicial, you can put a book for something in education, a stethoscope for medical, you can put a ball for sports,
microphone.
I've seen a pencil, microphone. I've seen microphones for entertainers. Yeah, for anything in the entertainment.
Exclusively rapping, though, actually. Yeah.
Only rapping, yes. I'm sure you can cater it to whatever you want to put out there. I mean, I saw one family put out I think it was a stack of like $100 bills or something like that. I mean,
that just seems unnecessary.
You're not going to be rich.
Exactly.
You're going to be rich.
We don't want you to just grab a $1 bill. We want you to grab a stack. But honestly, it's whatever you want to put out, and there's a whole list of things that you can do. So, yeah, my first son grabbed the stethoscope, so we think he may be in the medical career if this goes that way. My second son, when we had his, grabbed a calculator, and so maybe he's going to be an engineer of some sort.
Yeah.
But for both of these events, my brother, the first one my brother came to, all the way from Korea with his wife, and that was a really touching, sentiment that he would come out here all the way to experience my son's first birthday. And not only that, he brought gifts and stuff too.
Wow,
So from the family, because that's another thing that you always do is you bring gifts to the children for their first birthday.
Was that your brother's first time to the States?
I think he had been a couple times before, but meetings and things. I don't think it was. He definitely wanted to see a lot of the area as well. So we did drive around and a little bit and stuff, and showed him the beach and things.
No snowballs in California.
No snowballs here.
No.
So.
And I took him out to Venice Beach and I grabbed some sand.
And I pushed him in the water.
I found a jellyfish and I said, "Get in there." Been waiting 50 years. Like, we have beaches in Korea, bro.
It was really nice that he came out for that. And he didn't come out for my second son's birthday, but he came out shortly after. And then he says he's going to come out for my daughter's first birthday, which will be next year. So we'll see if he comes, depending on the pandemic. So that'll be interesting if he can make it out.
Fingers crossed that he can. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears and we'll come back to, because I'm interested in how you've kind of manually. I'm interested in how you've tried to navigate the balance between like being an American family and being a Korean Asian family, because your wife is not white, she is Asian, and not just one Asian but two Asians, right?
Yeah, she's
still one person. She's still one person.
Navigated there.
She is one person.
Okay,
a blend of those two cultures, and then I am a blend of Korean and American. So in a way, we're like a blend of, our children will be a blend of four cultures. I don't know. I still think of them as like the trifecta of Asian cultures.
like a Neapolitan Twinkie.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That actually sounds really good. Like,
It doesn't though. I'm never like, you know what sounds good? A Twinkie. Never come out of my mouth.
What? Not even when you were like 7?
You've never had a Twinkie, or you just don't?
No,
like
I've
them?
had Twinkies. I just don't really care for sweet
You
stuff.
gave him a 1-star review out right there. I can tell.
I would prefer just like McDonald's fries.
Interesting. We're gonna talk about that later.
All right.
That's gonna be your Midwest is showing.
What? Y'all get out of here.
Fries.
Anyways, so what? I'm curious. What was like when you were dating? Did you feel any pressure from yourself or from other people to date an Asian, or were you just like, I'm just gonna date who I want to date?
Good question. Everyone I've ever dated before my wife has been Caucasian. So yeah, it's always been not something that by choice, or again, options are limited.
Those are just the ponds you were swimming in.
Yeah, there were more, in college specifically. I do know that there were Asians out there, but I didn't really hang out with them as often, I would say. I mean, again, like I was in a fraternity and I was the only Asian in my fraternity for most of it. There was, one other later when I left, but so everyone I ever dated was Caucasian until California. My options were a lot more broad, and I
Less
met
white
my wife
people?
actually through photography. I was taking some photos and I met her and didn't even think about it. Mainly is because I was trying to be professional. I'm working, I'm taking photos.
Hey, good on you, bro.
I was just going to be the professional guy. And then after, she was actually talking to her friend on the way home, and her friend kept saying, "What? He's another Asian who likes country music?"
You like country music? We are going to have words after this recording. You can come after me for my enjoyment of McDonald's fries, and I'm gonna talk to you about that.
Oh, there's some stereotypes for my Oklahoma heritage for sure. And I'll shout out to Brahms. No, so yeah, I definitely like country music, and she liked country music. She actually did some country line dancing up in college.
Do you two-step?
So yeah, we've done a little, but not much. She does a lot more than I do. I'm not a very good dancer. And so her friend was like, "Dude, ask him out." So she asked me out, And so when she asked me out, I decided it was fair game. I was like, okay,
Love that.
I will go out on a date. And actually, I upped the ante. She just wanted to go out for drinks. I was like, well, let's just go to dinner. So.
Oh, look at you. I like that.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. So I have not dated anyone besides my wife. So like high school dating is all I know. So like drinks being more or dinner being more than drinks would not have understood that. I'm just like, I don't even know. So is that upping the ante? Is that
it was upping the ante a little bit, yeah. And because drinks gives you a shorter period of time in case things are not connecting, where you can go, oh, look at the time, gotta go. So there's a less amount of time. Whereas dinner, you're kind of locked in, especially if it's horrible in those first 5 minutes of sitting down. You're like, now I gotta wait for the entree to get here.
Interesting. Okay, so
not that that's ever happened to me, but
interesting. So what was part of your choice to do dinner motivated by the fact that you didn't want to become super red in front of her? Or were you like, she's Asian, she gets it?
I think she got that.
Okay.
The Asian glow thing anyway. It was more along the lines of we had such a good connection during the photo shoot and just talking and interacting. I knew it was going to go well. So I didn't, even if we had just gone for drinks, I probably would have said, hey, let's go to dinner after the drinks and stuff. So yeah, it was great. And, apparently it was the good decision because now three kids and 10 years later. So
I love the confidence. I knew it was going to go well. So I just said dinner, and we'll just call it right there.
Yeah.
Dinner to marriage. It's a straight line, right?
Well, that should be a podcast, Dinner to Marriage. So,
I think that's called Love is Blind on Netflix. Yeah.
Have you guys watched that show? Okay, we're getting off topic.
Yeah. So you said especially in the last, I think 6 years, right? You've been kind of on this journey of being Korean American and living with the hyphen and exploring this part of your identity. What are you learning or what are you most excited about right now with regards to that part of your identity? And it can be anything from like, this is my new favorite food or TV show to like this cultural item or practice is cool or, whatever.
Anything, honestly, that has to do with Korean culture. I mean, I'm a foodie at heart in general. So I love food. I love snacks. I love drinks. I can do a little bit of everything there. And so I constantly am going to Korean restaurants. I love all the different types of foods I've had. And so I try new things. I would love to pronounce some of them. I'd love to make some of them at home. I have actually bought some items. Luckily here in California, I have access to Korean supermarkets. So I've been trying to make a little bit at home. But it's funny. The journey lately has been just that. It's like exploring things that are at the Korean market and trying them out and making them at home because I want to give them to my kids. So we've been making a lot of things for my kids that I definitely never had as a kid growing up. I had pizza, I had, fried chicken and Mexican food. And that was what I was raised on, steak and potatoes stuff. I never had any real, authentic Korean or Asian food in general until, college and definitely until California. So yeah, like for example, one of the things my brother and his family taught us how to make was gimbap. And I've never had that before.
Korean sushi?
Essentially Korean sushi, right. And
nice.
I didn't know what that was, though. You had asked me that, 2 years ago before he came. I actually wouldn't have known that. So I've actually only learned this within the last, 2 years. And I remember eating it and just going, this is great, And so since that time, that visit, we've been making it. And my kids love it because they actually like sushi. But now if we, the little twist on it is, it's Korean sushi and, it's a little bit different stuff. It's not raw fish. So you put that in it and they love it. And so, now I've expanded my palate and theirs as well at the same time. So whatever I can find out there, I'm going to keep exploring and hopefully, giving more stuff to them. So
I want to go on the record and say, I definitely knew what gimbap was. Definitely knew. 100% knew what it was.
I remember this will forever stick out in my mind because in middle school, I like really closely interacted with another Korean American, and he was like, "Yo," I was like, "What can you tell me about my culture? Because I don't know." And he's like, "Okay, check this out. Gimbap is literally like rice punch." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, because kim is rice and bap is like fist." And so I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, all right, man. So yeah, I just was like, yeah, kimbap. I know what that is. It's funny.
I like it. I mean, I'll eat any type of food, especially Korean barbecue. I mean, that's easy. Not many people dislike it unless you're vegetarian. But
that's a large caveat.
Yeah. So
not many people hate steak unless you're.
I have been to a Korean barbecue with a vegetarian. Oh, okay. That's actually kind of funny too in itself.
I would just like the lettuce of the lettuce wrap, please.
Can I just get the tofu soup, please? Yeah.
Hey, my fiance's vegetarian, so.
Dude, no shade. That's just.
Then you should give her some tofu soup.
Okay. She probably like it.
Sundabu. It's really good.
Sundabu.
That's also good. Sundabu. Yeah. That's what this show's about. Learning.
I know. I've learned 2 food names now. And what they actually are.
2. Count them.
Good. Wait, I mean, I knew what the gimbap was.
Yeah, you're on record as saying you definitely knew.
That's true.
Oh,
you definitely know.
We're going to have a lot more coming up. We're going to be trying them and eating them.
Oh, I can't wait.
With your wife being, you said Chinese and Japanese, and you being Korean and American, and so like even just in the food game, how does that all play out when you're like, well, our kids need to know about gimbap and also regular sushi and also the Chinese variant of sushi, whatever that is. It's like, do you just get like, do you make 3 rolls and one of them is each of them? And then like, you also have like a pizza on the side. Like, what is that? It's just in terms of giving your kids kind of that cultural heritage because they have so much to draw from just all of East Asia, basically. Like, yeah. What is that like in terms of navigating their Asian American identity and the 3 Asian plus American identities?
Yeah, well, we never really introduce it to my kids as this is a Korean dish or this is a Japanese dish. We just go, this is food, and we'll just be happy if they eat it.
We will eat it
for any of the parents out
until you finish it.
Yeah. You don't matter where it came from.
2 more bites, please.
Eat it.
You know all those pictures I take? This is what the what produces from that. This is what comes of this.
No, I mean, eventually, my kids are still young. I mean, 2 and 4. So again, they don't.
So you really don't have to have that conversation.
I don't have to have that yet, but it will happen. And I mean, they've actually helped make it, so they do know how to make it. They can eat with chopsticks. There's definitely some elements of the cultural education that I do throw in there for them. But a lot of it is different. Like you said, I have my traditions and my wife has her own traditions. So most of her traditions are Japanese traditions. So, for example, they snack on seaweed and they just eat nori sometimes.
Yo, I would eat that stuff all day.
I never even had that until California. So for 30 years or so, I was not aware that was a snackable item. I mean, I knew seaweed was in sushi. I would have never thought to eat it in a dry cracker.
Like the squares, rectangles.
Yeah, the squares. Yeah. I just never would have thought of doing that. So they're learning a lot from her side, and I'll bring in the old chicken nuggets and pizza side, and
I've made some nugget and seaweed.
I've made some Oklahoma dishes for them before.
This salty nugget needs more salt.
And a lot of my family is also from Wisconsin, so when we went back to visit,
hella Midwestern.
Yeah. So we went to Wisconsin, and had cheese curds, which that's a.
Your wife was like, "Have this with seaweed."
Yeah, exactly. It fuses together. It's Asian fusion. No,
it's less squeaky that way.
That actually doesn't sound bad. I probably would put a cheese curd in some.
You've gone too far. You've gone too far.
He's like,
that could be good.
That's so funny.
Little green, little healthy with the bad for you. A little bit of both.
Oh yeah. Anytime you can say, "Eat your greens," be like, "Can I have seaweed?"
Yeah. So I'll give them seaweed all day long if they'll eat it. Sure. So.
That's funny. Cool. Well, I would say thanks for coming on the show, but it's our show. So
thanks for staying on the show.
Thanks for co-hosting this with us. And
thanks for making this with us.
I appreciate the questions and all the back and forth.
We had a lot of laughs, and this is just episode 1.
I know. Looking forward to drilling you guys now and asking some questions of the same nature.
I know I'm ready to be more than just the interjector. I like that name, though. I bust into sentences that need explanation.
Interjecting! Like that. I did it.
Okay.
Just like Nelly on any track he's on.
Oh, yeah.
Hey! Just going hot. What are we eating today?
Okay, so today we are eating kimchi, which is a Korean staple. I mean, it is honestly, I know maybe stereotypic that we're choosing one of the most popular Korean items that maybe everybody even knows or has heard about, but probably a lot of people have not tried. And so, I know a lot of Koreans eat it every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think it was only fitting that we chose this one as our first episode food item.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a rumor. Not a rumor. Just I heard a thing that Koreans start eating this at like kindergarten. Do you know if that's true? Can you corroborate?
I would say so. I mean, honestly, I've tried to get my kids to eat it, and
Kindergarten seems so young.
They're under kindergarten. My kids are 4 and 2.
I don't know. I didn't start eating spicy food until like, I don't know, much later in life comparatively. So
I mean, there's different levels of it. Honestly,
there's 1-year-old.
Yeah,
get out of here.
There's different levels of spice. I mean, when I was at the store looking, it has mild, medium, hot. And on top of that, I know there's hundreds of different varieties of kimchi.
I see that mine now says classic mild. Okay.
See, there you go.
So I don't have a heat sensor on mine. So
can't test if it has COVID.
Maybe that just means
regular.
It's more authentic,
calling
actually.
It regular.
That's not made for Caucasians.
Good luck.
It's like salsa does it. We might as well put one on there for them too. So.
Amazing.
I mean, yeah. So the one I found is not even a very Korean name at all. It's just the Mommy Boss. I just thought that was a really funny name and logo. It's very cute. So it has a cute little label. It says healthy and fresh. I don't know. It looks tasty. So that's the one I bought at the store. I almost went with a different brand, but they also had one, which again, like I said, there's hundreds of different types of kimchi, and there's one of my other favorites, which is a cucumber kimchi. So I got that one just as a for my own little take.
Is it so many? Is it so many different kinds, or is it always just fermented, like spicy fermented, like vegetables, or is it cabbage specifically? And then there's like you can put other things in there. I guess I've always just kind of wondered about that.
I mean, cabbage is the most common kimchi, but like as you can see, the one with cucumbers is still called kimchi. It's just cucumber kimchi.
That one's my favorite.
And there's a soup kimchi, so it's actually like a soup with liquid and a little. There's 2 different types: one that's clear and one that's got some color in it, some of the spice. If you go to a Korean restaurant, they'll have the radish. So radish as well, the little cubes. Kimchi. I mean, honestly, like I said, you look on the internet, there's hundreds of types. But yes, the Napa cabbage is the most common one. And I've loved it ever since I had it, but I've always loved pickled things. I think for me, I like pickles, so I was going to try kimchi.
Yeah, I definitely did not like pickles when I was younger. I went to Korea when I was in middle school, and that might have been my first experience with kimchi. And that was not for me. At that time, I was not eating spicy food, which was much dismaying for my family because they were like, "You don't even like salsa?" I was like, "No, it's too spicy. I can't do it, but I'll eat the chips all day." So I didn't like pickles. I didn't like pickled things. I didn't like spicy things. So kimchi was just a big no-no. But I ate it because I was in Korea and I wanted to try all the things. And it was cold. And I did not expect that because just for me, hot and spicy always go together. So like cold and spicy was not, it was a weird thing for my 12-year-old body to experience. But now I've really come to love it. And actually, as of recording this podcast just this morning, I made myself kimchi fried rice because I didn't have anything else. So, yeah.
That's something I've seen a lot more often too, is that not kimchi is just the side, banchan, dish that you eat at the beginning. It's made in things like fried rice, omelets. I have a scallion pancake that has kimchi in it. It's being used in a lot of other things that are not just by itself, which I think is really cool. So that might be a good way of trying it first if anybody was hesitant on trying it just plain straight out of a jar. But
I'm diving right in that jar. I'm diving right into that jar.
You've had it before, right?
I thought I had it, but I don't know. I think I might have been thinking of something else, and I really don't know what that was that I was thinking of. So
this is so exciting. So you got your kimchi from Target, right?
Target kimchi.
Which means it's amazingly
your brand again.
Soul brand.
I've heard of that brand.
Raw and healthy. Our grandma's kimchi recipe with fresh Korean chili peppers, ginger, garlic, and bottled fresh. So I'm ready to get the bubbly zing of healthy probiotics. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay, yeah. So real quick, mine is Gangnam Kimchi, which came from the Korean market here in Springfield. It's the one that I found that was the size that I want because it comes in like 40-gallon buckets. And I was like, I'm not that Korean. So just a salsa jar is all I needed. So yeah, so there that is.
I'm friends with somebody on Facebook who has been posting pictures of the same jug of kimchi just slowly going down, and then it was like half full, and then one day later it was all gone. I was like, no. I was like, excuse me.
Whoa. Like I said,
we're not having parties right now.
Every meal, man. Okay. No, when I was at the Korean market, I mean, there was a whole section. It's like it's larger than the dairy section at a regular grocery store, and this is a section just for kimchi. On top of that, I'm a part of a Korean Facebook group that actually is Korean cooking, and people were talking about kimchi refrigerators, which I thought was really interesting because kimchi is so pungent and has such a smell to it that you don't want to keep it in the refrigerator because the smell could leak out to the other food in your refrigerator. So they have specific refrigerators just for kimchi. I'm like, wow, that's dedication. So it's.
Mine says to keep refrigerated, so sorry, my other groceries.
Same. Dude, same.
All right, let's eat it.
Are we doing this?
All right. Just eat it because I love it, but I'm curious to try this brand.
Woo!
And so
I'm immediately hit by what's that smell?
I know.
Which I forgot, but it's just so concentrated in the jar.
So
mine is overflowing.
Oh, nice. That's probably a good thing.
Mine had a big sticker that said "bubbling may occur." So
yeah. So
don't spill it on your
pants.
That
tastes amazing. Just the fermented juice. I licked it off my hand. That tasted great.
I think as a kid, the reason I didn't have it the first time was because it was called fermented, and I think in my mind, fermented just seemed weird to me. But if they had just said pickled, like it was pickled vegetables, because I loved pickles, but they didn't call pickles fermented. It's. I think they just needed to say something different to me that would make me try it at a younger age.
I'm not even going to use this fork. I'm going to use my hands and just eat these top pieces off the top.
So
nice.
Okay, two of us are eating it with authentic metal chopsticks, whereas Patrick is eating it with a metal fork. So
nope.
But to each their own. I'm just gonna
my natural chopsticks. These hands, baby.
And I've never actually thought
this is actually great. I was really worried about trying this, and this tastes amazing.
Yeah.
I'm reverting back to my 12-year-old self. I don't know if I could eat this on its own. As a side dish, I love it. In stuff, I love it. On its own, don't love it.
A lot of the time when I've had it, I like having it with rice. Right. So I like the going back and forth from spicy to kind of just a bland, sticky rice. But
I think I need that because this is a little hard for me.
If I could put this on some rice right now, heaven. Let me get some rice.
So I also bought the one that had the cucumber just because I wanted to try some of that. I haven't had that in a while. And that's pretty good too. I really like the cucumber. It's not like a pickle. It's a little, I would say it's mushier than a pickle. Pickles sometimes are crispier. And this one's just kind of more of a, maybe again, it's not fresh, but it's in a jar. So
okay,
I like that.
I wonder if it's the Target brandness of it that's making me like it so much.
Again, there's a lot of different kinds. I've seen ones that are less red, that have less of the chili pepper flakes in it. So gochujara, I believe. We're gonna be butchering Korean words, I think, on this show. So one of the things that I keep looking up and seeing all these words, I'm like, I don't know.
Take them to the back and just chop them up.
Notice I haven't said a single Korean word.
But yeah, this you can tell some are more red than the others.
This is pretty liquidy too. I feel like mine isn't as liquidy as I expected.
Yeah, I also read
soupy consistency.
I also read that that also depends on the region too. Some areas of Korea have more liquidy, and some areas are more salty and pungent.
All right, so maybe I'm just not cut out for the Gangnam region. I like Gangnam Style by Psy, but not sure kimchi as much. So,
well, keep
Gangnam area.
Cooking it in things. Throw it in some soup. Throw it in your rice. Fried rice. Kimchi fried rice is great. So,
I don't know that I could really. Okay, Jerry probably holla at me if this is wrong, but kimchi soup is kimchi jjigae, right?
Jjigae, yeah.
Right? Is that familiar to you? I feel okay. Here's the deal. So I go to a Korean restaurant. I've had Korean food before. I eat a little bit more than just the basic bulgogi and bibimbap. But then I go and like I look on the list and it says kimchi jjigae, and I'm like, I know what kimchi is, and I don't like it enough for it to be the main flavor of a thing. And then the picture is just like stew, and I'm like, I don't know that I want. I know I said earlier that like cold spicy was weird, but I don't know that I would want hot spicy kimchi either. But if you're into that, when you go to a Korean restaurant and it's like doing its best to be authentic presenting, or it actually is authentic, then jjigae might be the word that you're looking out for. Side note, do y'all's noses get sweaty if you eat spicy food, or is that just me?
It depends on how much and how
spice.
spicy it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
So-
definitely if it's really spicy. And luckily, I have not found a kimchi that is too spicy for me yet. And I almost, because when I said that at the store there was mild, medium, and hot for this one,
Yeah.
I almost bought the hot just to see if I could take it. And I think I would be able to, because I can take some pretty hot spices.
That's what I want. I love the heat. Give me that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and,
see,
I mean,
I feel
compared
like
to Thailand and the food there, like I've had some really hot stuff that made me almost die, I feel.
I feel like I've come a long way since I was a young kid, but this classic mild is making my nose sweat. So
Oh, well, there you go.
I
Maybe
know
it's
it's
good.
hot and spicy if my pores on my forehead open up to the size of manhole covers,
yeah,
and I just drenched in sweat. Just drenched in sweat.
Perfect. So that was kimchi. Patrick, wait, had you had this before, or is this your first time eating
No,
kimchi?
I think it is my first time for real.
Wow.
This is great.
Welcome.
I want to try that cucumber
Patrick's
though.
going to go to Target and get kimchi more often.
I know I should have bought the one of the two, the second jar that they had. They only had 2 left, so I only bought one.
Hot demand in Indianapolis.
So I also heard that there are some kimchis that aren't as fermented, so that are just more fresh, made fresh. So maybe those are less pungent and also, I don't know, just crispier probably. But I'm actually curious now. As I said, I love to cook, so kimchi might now be on my list of things to make myself. I've never tried it, so
I keep eating this.
Dude, go nuts.
I'm gonna shut it.
It's really great with day-old rice if you just make your own fried rice.
yeah, mix it in with stuff. Honestly, I think
I
that's
can't wait
the
to
best
take
way.
this and eat it at work, and people be like, "What is happening?" Kimchi,
Yeah.
baby.
And they'll be like, you'll hear your coworkers be like, what's that smell? And be like,
Yeah.
I've made it as an Asian American. That's how you know.
That's me.
So that is the show. Thanks for hanging out with us for episode 1 of the Janchi Show, where we explored kimchi and got to experience Patrick eating kimchi for the first time. So I hope if you are listening to this, if you haven't had it, go out to your local Target or Korean market, whichever one is easier to get to, and get yourself some kimchi and let us know what your experience was with that.
I hope it was as great as mine.
And definitely subscribe to our show. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, where our handle name is Janchi Show. And you can find us there and see what's coming up in the next episodes.
We'll see you next week.